Welcome, class, to another audio podcast. I'm your host and Professor Alex Gomez. Today, we are going to cover the historical and symbolic figure of La Malinche, also known as Malinche and Doña Marina by the Spaniards. Her image has been changed many times to fit shifting political agendas and national identities in post colonial Mexico. There's little comprehensive documentation about La Malinche. La Malinche left no records of her own life. What we know of her only depends entirely on second-hand accounts. She's believed to have been born sometimes around early 1500s. She was among 20 women given to Hernán Cortés in 1519 by a Mayan lord. According to Bernal Díaz del Castillo, who traveled with Cortés, he wrote in one of his memoirs, "What the other women were named, I do not know. I cannot remember all their names, and that's not really important. Cortés allotted one of them to each of his captains, and Doña Marina, as she was pretty and engaging, he gave it to Alonso Hernandez Puerto Carrero." If you want to read more about this account, you can find it in The True History of the Conquest of New Spain by Bernal Díaz del Castillo. Cortés at the beginning relied on Jerónimo Aguilar. He was fluent in Mayan and became Cortés' interpreter. He was a survivor of a shipwreck and landed in the coast of Mexico, and because he spent many years among the Mayans, he knew the area, the culture, and he was a great help for Cortés. There were many languages in Mexico at that time, and Aguilar did not speak any Nahuatl language. That was the main language spoken in the Valley of Mexico and the Mexicas. And this is where La Malinche becomes super important for Hernán Cortés. La Malinche, who was born in the Nahua speaking region of southern Mexico, but who had also learned Maya as a slave, became then Cortés' interpreter. At first, Cortés spoke to Aguilar, who then translated Spanish into Maya for La Malinche, who in turn would speak to the Mexicas. Malinche, however, quickly learned Spanish and soon replaced Aguilar as Cortés' interpreter. After the Spanish conquest of Tenochtitlan, La Malinche gave birth to a son, Martín Cortés. That's around 1522, and Hernán Cortés was the father. Sometime around 1524 or 1526, La Malinche accompanied Hernán Cortés on a mission to modern-day Honduras, where she again acted as an interpreter. There are four other Spanish chroniclers that attribute La Malinche as a loyal woman to the Spanish. For example, she warned Cortés of an ambush that the Cholulans were planning. She was also a key figure in the negotiation between the Spanish and the Aztecs. She helped in the conversion of many indigenous people around the Valley of Mexico. Therefore, Mexicanos have viewed her as a traitor, a woman that favored her Spanish rulers instead of her own people. However, let's not forget that La Malinche was given to Cortés originally as a slave, and the rumors of them being in love is unknown, and even her own mother had given her away to a slave trader. As Malinche transformed into a myth, she was understood as a signifier of the evils of femininity in opposition to the Virgin of Guadalupe, who represented the good women. La Malinche and the Virgin of Guadalupe are both symbolic mothers of the Mexican nation, who are portrayed to have conceived of their mestizo children by rape and by immaculate conception, respectively. The symbol of La Malinche as an indigenous woman appeared in Mexican political art and propaganda years after the Mexican Revolution. We can see that in public murals painted by renowned muralists like Diego Rivera and José Clemente Orozco. In this fresco, painted by Orozco, Cortés and La Malinche are nude, as if they were Adam and Eve, portraying the mixing of the two races. It is clear that La Malinche in this painting is being portrayed here as the mother of the modern Mexico. Later, Octavio Paz, one of the greatest Latin American writers, who won the Nobel Prize of Literature in 1990s, he writes, and I'm going to quote, that Cortés and La Malinche have been converted into symbols of a secret conflict that we have still not resolved. Paz continued to argue that the assumed masculine Mexican, and I'm going to quote by Octavio Paz, does not want to be an Indian or a Spanish, and thus condemns his origins in hybridism when he repudiates La Malinche. Paz considers La Malinche as a victim of Spanish colonialism, and this story of victimization is patriarchal in itself, in that it excludes the possibility that a woman may be active or have some control over her actions. Chicana writers like Sandra Cisnero revalues in her novels the three most prevalent representations of Mexican womanhood: the passive virgin, the sinful seductress, and the treacherous mother, idealized in the figures of La Virgen de Guadalupe, La Malinche, and La Llorona. Another famous Chicano writer, Carmen Tafoya, an internationally acclaimed Chicana writer from San Antonio, Texas, in her well-known Chicana poem about La Malinche, addresses the tension between traitor and survivor, raped slave, and mother of La Raza by writing as if La Malinche herself was recounting her own story. In the end, the stories of La Malinche's life, both condemning and sympathetic, it only reveals that La Malinche was an intelligent and resourceful woman, betrayed, enslaved, buffeted between two empires, somehow emerging as a historical giant in her own right.